shut their mouths. Nations bow down to your throne. Enemies will fall, rulers stand in awe of your mind, of your mind. You are the name above all names. Heaven and earth adore. You are the King above all kings. Everlasting Lord, forever you will reign. We will declare you are the name above all names. Mountains tremble, and the waves remember your voice. Stars are burning, and the earth is turning by your hand, by your hand. You are the name above all names. Heaven and earth adore. You are the King above all kings. Everlasting Lord, forever you will reign. We will declare you are the name above all names. Every knee will bow before you. Every tongue confess that you are Lord. You are Lord. Every knee will bow before you. Every tongue confess that you are King. You are King. You are the name above all names. You are the King above all kings. Forever you will reign. You are the name above all names. You are the name above all names. Heaven and earth adore. You are the King above all kings. Everlasting Lord, forever you will reign. We will declare you are the name above all names. Yeah.
Good evening. Thanks for being here to celebrate with us tonight. We're excited for you to be here. On April 6, 2009, we could never have imagined standing in front of you today, sharing the stories you'll hear about God's guidance and provision. 5 years of hard work, travel, ups, downs, wins, and losses. If you're here for the first time or unsure of who Trash Mountain is, this is who we are. We're a nonprofit based in Topeka, Kansas, and our mission is to develop Christ-centered environments for children and families living in trash dump communities worldwide. These are areas where people live, work, and die in trash, trying to make a meager wage to live to the next day. Currently, we work in the Dominican Republic, the Philippines, Honduras, and Cambodia, but know there are thousands of these around the globe. Through our many partnerships and supporters here in the United States, we serve alongside local in-country leaders to help assist in sustainable, Christ-centered environments through the planning of churches, schools, nutrition programs, aquaponics, and more. The stories that have come from the past 5 years are hard to even describe. Tonight, we'll tell a few of these stories from the perspective that so many of us saw them from. We are witnesses to God's work and the movement around the world, and each of us has played a different role in this process, including you. In a book written by Mark Batterson, he discusses the fact that God used so many people in the Bible that some of us may never have even thought of him using to advance the gospel. He says, if God used them, he can use you, and he wants to. In fact, he's cultivating talents within you that will serve kingdom purposes in ways that you're totally unaware of right now. It may be your God-given athletic abilities or musical inclination that God uses to give you a platform to give him praise. It may be your creative genius. It may be an idiosyncrasy. Or it could just be your good old-fashioned work ethic. No matter what it is, it's a gift from God to be used for God. Do the best you can with what you have where you are. If this is your first encounter with Trash Mountain Project, welcome to the team. If you've been with us for years, months, weeks, or days, thank you. Tonight, we celebrate with you.
The emerging leaders said to me, if I tell people about these things, if I really just relax and tell them everything that happened on that last trip, is it going to take away from God's story? He was so concerned that if he was faithful to describe what may be called coincidences, miracles, spectacles, that it just might cause folks to look at him. And he was trying to get rightly related to the story. That was Brett. Last year, as we took a walk around Shawnee Lake, and I am privileged to be one of his professors, friends. He calls me mentor from time to time. And I knew that whatever I said next was either going to trivialize, like, don't be so concerned about that, or it was going to harvest something that was stirring in his life. The thing that came to mind in that moment was, Brett, you didn't cause these things, but you are a witness of them. The thing I knew about Brett was that he had a criminal justice background. We might hear a little bit later that he had another criminal kind of background also, but he had a criminal justice background where he had to learn forensic science. He had to know how to move onto a crime scene and to make a distinction between what he's observing and what is actually there, and to make right conclusions about that. I trusted his judgment around the kinds of things that were happening to him, the kind of things that have formed the substance of a book now called Witness. When he called me and said, would you consider writing the foreword, I knew we'd have to talk about the walk around the lake. But the first thing that came to my mind were the words spiritual loneliness. You know, how could this book be about spiritual loneliness from my point of view? Some of you on your job as nurses or sergeants or working in the restaurant, God has whispered to you to do things that if you went through with them, they would cause folks to look at you strange. You'd have to explain yourself. Some of you have left all and moved here because you sensed that God wanted you to do it. I remember a woman from of old. Her name's Mary. She kind of got a reputation in her neighborhood because we don't exactly know. Is she the kind of promiscuous girl that kind of played around, messed around? She found herself great with child. And God, knowing the crazy-making experience that would have inside of that would have on a neighborhood, sent her on a little journey to her cousin's house, to Elizabeth. Virgin on one end of life, and a barren woman well beyond childbearing years on the other end of life, meeting with one another and somehow representing to one another that which you have experienced is from the Holy One and that you're not crazy. In my work with emerging leaders, when I listen into the things that they are looking for, they're needing, they're making a mentoring appointment or having a mentoring moment with me, the meetings are often around confidence, credibility, consistency in their own hearts. And as I thought about what Brent was saying to me as we walked around Lake Shawnee, I was thinking this emergent leader's having a confidence challenge. But it's not like the kind of physical confidence. Does he have the ability, the braveness, the courage to go through with something? Confidence is defined as that certainty that comes from predictability. And there was nothing about the trips that Brett was taking with Trash Mountain that had predictability anywhere associated with them. How would he talk about these things, and why is it happening to me? I think some of us have this same kind of voice whispering to us. I think we would miss the evening if we only took this as the unveiling of the book or the unveiling of these stories and missed ourselves inside of the story. I think that this is the life, the ordinary life of disciples, that as they follow the voice, he will lead them into places that leave them unrecognizable to themselves by the time their obedience assignment is over with. And I believe that's the invitation that is hanging out for all of us. So we are celebrating 5 years of Trash Mountain Project being in existence and looking forward to the next 5 years and then the multiplication of those numbers for years to come. But not without you, not without you being the same kind of disciple that listens to the voice, steps out in courage, and may need someone to come to you to say, listen, that which is going on inside of you is from the Holy One too, and you're not crazy. So be stirred in your faith. If God's been speaking to you, whispering about some integrity check, some obedience check that you should make an agreement with him about, use tonight to get in alignment with him, to join the adventure. God bless you, and God bless Trash Mountain Project. We look forward to what he's going to do.
The tired sun hides in the west, unmasking the night. A phantom hand strains to steal and renders me blind. Forsaken, my light has gone. Faceless oblivion, chasing the horizon. Beneath this shroud, my terror grows. sing the night so long. I'm facing the rising sun.
How's it going? Wow, I know it's 7 o'clock, but my goodness. Woo, it's gonna be a tough crowd. I'll just not even do the second one. I know you're doing good, we'll go with that. But my name is Brett Durbin. I'm the director of Trash Mountain Project, and those of you who do know me, I may look a little different. About a tenth of me is missing. I went on a really extreme diet that I picked up in the Philippines, and so I'm kind of getting back to normal here, but also because of that, hopefully I'll be on point with everything tonight. But first thing I want to do before we really get moving with things is I want to just thank some of the main people who've gotten this going, and obviously there's a ton of volunteers. But first, Jim Congdon for writing the book with me. It's just been a kind of a cool journey writing that, and Fellowship Bible Church just for hosting this event, and Wyatt Johnston and the whole tech team and the tech team from TBC. They do all of these events that we put on, and they do just an incredible job. Gayla Greening and Carol Mamalidi, they've done a lot of the organizing for this, and the TMP staff, and John DeMeo and Kip Crasing are on all of the graphic design, Bill Horn and the band, everything they're going to do tonight. Russell West for coming up from Kentucky. Kentucky's having kind of a big weekend, a few of you may know about that. Michael Mize and Diane Horn, the artistic expressions you're seeing tonight are by them. Wish I could do stuff like that. Don Brent for photography, Jim Kresge and Will Nicklin for all of the printing that you see that they gave to us, and just again, all the volunteers that we have. It brings me into just kind of the core theme you're going to hear throughout the whole night. And really, I'd say especially after doing the first one, the core theme for this evening, and I would say even throughout the book, is just the idea of a team. It takes a team to do everything that we do. And when it was back at the very beginning, and if you look at how the book lays out, it starts well before anything. And as Dr. West told you, before this was actually an organization, when I had talked to him about it, he knew I struggled with starting an organization, but then when it came to writing a book, I asked him about that, and he just said, I understand this, what you're going through, but I had a hard time putting this in my own voice, and I didn't want it to be about me. I want it to be God's story, and it really is. But the biggest thing for me was I needed to talk to elders. If I've learned anything, I wanted to talk to people who've been there, who've done that, who are smarter than me, who I really thought could give me a freedom to say yes to doing this. And once I got that freedom, then I came to Jim and asked him if he'd do it with me, and just thought that would be a great way to have accountability throughout the whole process. But then also you'll see that throughout the book, it's held together through biblical principles that he kind of puts his voice into it throughout. And so throughout this story, he kind of ties these things together with these ideas that come straight from the Bible. And so I think it really worked out well. And so it just it flowed, But to me, it took a lot of different people to make this happen. And after I'd checked all those boxes, there was something. You think you're ready for something, and it's like, all right, finally, this is going to come out, and we're going to have this event. It's going to be great. And I got to tell you, we've had probably the worst month in the history of our family this last month. It's just been very, very difficult. And what that did, though, was it reminded me about this team, and that it made me count on my family. It made me count on our staff. It made me count on prayer once again. And, I think that was something that also made us make this a little more unpolished. This is going to be the most unpolished uncut Trash Mountain event we've ever done, and I think that's good. I think each element of what you're going to see tonight, in and of itself, is not unpolished. The book, the story, Bill's music, Michael and Diane's art, it's all from the heart. You know, this is something that we really wanted just the freedom to share with you from our perspective, the story of what this ministry has become, and we wanted to do it through the avenue that God has gifted us in. And so tonight we want to take you on a journey. We want to take you on this, this expression and tell you about TMP and give you an idea. When you hear me say TMP, I guess I say that, and I should know that not everyone knows what that is, Trash Mountain Project. We want to walk through some of the deeper core themes of who we are. What is our mission about? What do we represent? And so you'll find that the book actually starts well before it existed. I mean, it was back when my wife and I were praying, trying to find out what God has for our lives. And then in 2008, we went to Honduras and we were confronted with this monumental problem. And it was a trash dump community, but it was a humanity problem. And what we found was, if you don't know what a trash dump community is, it's just you have people, kids, as young as 2, picking through trash, trying to find something that they can sell to earn enough to buy something to eat. And so it's just this ongoing cycle. And it's got everything you can possibly imagine in terms of pain, violence, anything you can think of that the world has wrong with it, you have in these communities. But what could we do? We were 2, mid-20s, late 20s, whatever it was we were, white kids from Topeka, Kansas, both with upper middle class backgrounds. How are we going to relate to them? But we knew we were supposed to respond. But to me, I knew the thing we had to do was, as I said earlier, talk to someone. This wasn't going to be something that we could just do. It wasn't going to be something that a couple could go out and handle. And one of the most important things to me, I'd say actually key element, was Jesus left one mechanism in place for the world when he left the earth, and that was the church. And if the church wasn't going to back this, I didn't want to do it. And so that left really one option for me, was to talk to some pastors that I really trusted and that I could look up to and say, what do you guys think of this? And so I want to have a couple of pastors that a lot of you will recognize. One is the pastor of this church, Joe Hishma, here at Fellowship, and then Jim Congdon, pastor of Topeka Bible Church. I'm going to have them come up now, and we're going to talk a little bit about those conversations, kind of the start of Trash Mountain. They were the 2 guys I sought for wise counsel. This is wise counsel, yeah?
My name is Uncut and you're Unpolished, and between us, I think we got it covered. Hi, folks. Thanks for coming.
What?
Yeah, so you came to see us?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
Yeah, I did at one point. First, we had kind of an interesting first session at this, so hopefully this one will go just as well. You heard Dr. West earlier. He was actually the first person I confided in about this, and he said, well, check first to see if anyone's doing this well, which I think was really good advice. He just said, the world really doesn't need another nonprofit organization, which I agree. There's a lot of them. And so I looked and really we couldn't find anybody that was focused on trash dump communities. And so, at that point I said, well, can't find anyone, and, what now? And so I said, well, maybe you should move forward with it. But, the first thing I did was I thought, okay, well, I'm going to call 2 pastors. There's 2 that I knew. First, I called Joe, and I actually didn't know you. First thing I ever talked to you about was this, which was kind of odd. My brother introduced me to you, and we met at Classic Bean. That's right. And, how did that conversation go down? What do you remember about that conversation?
Yeah, Brett, I remember that conversation about you coming and talking to me about this thing that God had laid on your heart, this experience you had. And over the course of that, just that recent time, right before you came and talked to me, I was counseling with a bunch of people who were kind of discontent with where they were in life. And there were several things going on in your ministry job down in Florida that were kind of frustrating for you. And I just was trying to figure out, is this a holy discontent that God was really pulling you out and using that environment there to make you discontent there so that he could move you into trash communities around the world? Or was it just something that was of the flesh that you were just kind of just frustrated and you wanted to get out? And so in our time together, I just kind of gave you the interrogation questions and ultimately said, man, be available. because that's the greatest place you can be, is to be available to God. Don't end your day job. Submit to the leadership there. Serve people, love Jesus, and be available for whatever God would have for you in the future.
Yeah, and that was, for me, I needed to hear that too. And we, as we talked too, you'd given me the advice of just, don't be crushed if this doesn't work. And I think for me, I've looked at that, and I've talked to other people that are starting new organizations, and, most things do not move forward. It's not that it's a bad idea or just one reason or another, it doesn't. And I remember just the advice of, don't let this just absolutely kill you if it doesn't go where you think it should go. But obviously it seems like there's doors opening, there's doors closing in areas.
That's right.
Keep walking forward and see what happens.
And then you invited me down that summer, and I took Mike Tyndall from our church here, and we traveled down there. I think it was in June. Mm-hmm. I think it was Father's Day in June, and then I got to see what he saw, and I got to experience what he experienced, and I saw people living in a house no larger than what my kids have as their bedroom, and sleeping on a mattress with 4 or 5 little kids with flies just swarming around them. I saw poverty on a scale I had never seen before. I saw people just combing through trash, and the smells of that. I mean, there's our trash that we throw away and gets collected every week, and then there's third world trash, and that is just on another scale. And yet people just combing through that to find whatever they could recycle, and you're talking about less than $3 or $4 a day for 12 hours of combing through that. And it just sent me back with, not just at the angle of, boy, you have it really good, Joe, but boy, we, the church, need to get involved in some capacity.
Yeah. It was encouraging. And that did jump us into, if we fast forward, it did jump us into a partnership,
That's
which
right.
took several steps, and we wound up at that place, and in that process, and I think you guys kind of connected throughout that time, but I didn't really, I knew Jim more through my parents and my brother and his family went to Topeka Bible Church, and I had been in touch with you through email, but we really didn't, I met you over like Christmas break, stuff like that, but, but I had emailed you a couple of times, and we had communication that way, but.
Which in itself was surprising, because I remembered when he was about 10 years old, praying that God would keep him away from my daughter. When he was a budding juvenile delinquent, and so we'd pray for him, Lord, save this kid. And even when he got older, I remember praying for him. I don't know if you're in college or whatever. I remember praying with your folks over and so forth. Lord, keep him out of Leavenworth. So to get an email from you from Florida, and to hear that you were clothed and in your right mind, and was really kind of cool, and just asking advice or chatting or that was really cool. And then you came back and said, can we get together? And I recommended a normal place. He said he only goes to coffee places, so we went to Starbucks.
That wasn't me. That's just that old Christian thing.
Yeah.
You guys ever notice that Christians only get together at coffee places?
Yeah.
It's like it's the approved Christian drug, and so we get together there. That's just
because
we were at Classic Bean, we were Starbucks. That's where all these meetings go down. It's just
I drove to Starbucks. I was on a Saturday, I think. I did not expect anything special there. I just thought I'm going to get together with him, but we were in a transition stage, like you'd said you were too. Joe, and we were in a transition stage in missions. We'd been supporting for about 10 years. We'd been building a camp on an island of the Philippines, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that whole project was clearly sort of, because of some events, it was coming to an end. And so I'd been praying about, where are we going to go next as a church? And, I wanted some ideas to take to my elders, missions committee. So we're talking, and I just asked about, tell me about Trash Mountain, and you told me the story. And then you said you were about to go the next month or something and go open a new place, hopefully, in Santiago, Dominican Republic. Never been there, and I don't hear the Lord, and I didn't hear him then either. But it was a really unique experience for me. What did we later call it? We called it.
You said the Holy Spirit descended on the coffee mug.
Yeah, I mean, it was really weird to hear him saying, to hear out of my mouth the words, I think you ought to go to Santiago, and I think you ought to plan on Santiago, and I think our church will take care of that. I mean, I think we'll do it. I think you ought to count on that. And I just was so sure that the elders would say yes, the missions committee would say yes, the church was behind it. It was a little strange. I remember driving away from there and thinking, this was really interesting. It was cool.
It was a strange drive away from me too. I wasn't expecting
Yeah.
It was a good one. It was very good.
I'll bet. Yeah.
But we left there, and there was it was cool because this was all kind of happening at the same time, and we ended up separately taking trips down, and then we had I think it was a December trip that decided that TBC and Fellowship would partner together, and I intentionally roomed you two together just to see what would happen. And
you are a mean person.
Yeah, and just talk a little about that. Yeah. You got thrown on the bus, man.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, Joe and I we'd met
Yes.
several times, and we'd chatted, and we liked each other. Our churches hated each other, but we liked each other. No, there was a competition that neither one of us liked, but there was a competition that went on, a KU, K-State type of a thing or whatever. But then, it just seemed like it would be great to have a side door for both of our churches.
Right.
Mission field, this mission maybe, and where people, we could become friends and we could love each other.
That's right.
With a common interest or common goal. And but I didn't. But we also did room together, and what happened in Santiago will stay in Santiago. Yeah.
Santiago. That's right. I've been praying that we could be in partnership with a whole bunch of churches, not only in Topeka, but around the world.
You've done a great job of that with the school system and
That's
so forth.
right.
Yeah.
But for you to come to me with this idea and say, hey, what could happen if our two churches paired with this? This is right up our vein. I mean, 42% of our whole congregation is under the age of 20. So we're a younger church with a lot of kids. And for us to really think about serving children in a third world context like this, man, our people just bought into it. And I know that when they did the sponsorship program at your church, I mean, you did that the week before ours, and 125 kids were sponsored there.
It was great.
And then we didn't do quite as good as that because we don't have near the resources you guys
You're
do.
sponsoring all your own children.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. But I mean, God just kind of brought us together, and we could make a huge difference with about as many kids in Santiago that we do in our own churches here. So that was just awesome to see.
It was amazing.
No, it wasn't. I mean, you guys actually, you were closer than you think. I think it was like 125 to 115.
Okay, well,
somewhere in that. There was
I can
pledge
pledge those other 10
in a
tomorrow.
tally.
No, I'm
it was
just
a
kidding.
competition.
We kept it in our office, but
Yeah.
it was TBC won.
Yeah.
But no, they actually.
That's
moral
why
of the
I
story.
got to write the book.
Moral of the story, was it's in the back.
And I'm just sitting in the middle right now, right? Okay.
You can see how
The
it
moral of the
goes.
story was that you guys sponsored every kid that we had available at that point in 2 Sundays, which that doesn't happen. I talked to other major organizations like Compassion and talked to them about that, and saw them at a conference, and they're like, was that at a conference that you did that? And I was like, no, it was 2 Sunday mornings at 2 churches. They're like, oh, were they like 10,000 member churches? No, it was 2 1,500 member churches, and no, that doesn't happen. And so it said a lot about the churches and just the response that we saw. And so there was a buy-in, but for us, you hinted to it, there was more than TBC and Fellowship. And actually for us as an organization, we started hearing, oh, well, isn't Trash Mountain, isn't that like a TBC thing? Isn't that a TBC ministry, or isn't that a fellowship ministry? And for us, we're like, no, we're like a standalone organization. It's just, we do a lot with them. But as we were starting to talk to even other churches, I was hearing that. It's like, no, we want to partner with as many churches as possible in the area. And
How many churches are there now? And it's really exciting how many churches
I think
you've got.
we're with 21 churches in the area now. And I mean that, I think that came from these conversations too. Though it was interesting that some of these partnerships happened as maybe you would talk to someone, or I would talk to someone, or someone from this church that talked to that person, and it takes you folks talking to someone, and then they talk to the pastor, and then, hey, I'm interested in this, or I heard about that, or I read the book, or whatever, and you end up, in a place where you are partnering with that church. And so for us, that has been something that has really been core to the heart of what Trash Mountain is. And
Well, let me introduce a term here: team.
Team?
Yeah, does that word ring a bell?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of a theme throughout the night. Yeah.
Team thing.
Yeah. But I do want to do something, and I'm going to have, this will be a good way to kick you guys off the stage.
Okay. I'd be glad to do that.
Jim and Joe go back down. Just stay standing for me, though. If you guys go to Fellowship or TBC, could you stand up? And then if you go to any of our other partner churches, as I read them off, it'll be Fellowship, Topeka Bible Church, Western Hills Baptist, Grace Point, Lighthouse, Wanamaker Woods, Covenant Baptist, Journey, Living Water, First Southern Baptist, Imago Dei, Countryside, Central Park Christian, Auburn Christian, Topeka Baptist, New Community Christian, Glen Park Christian. Wow, that almost knocked out the whole room. If you're still sitting, can you please stand up? Because you are here right now. If you're here right now, yeah. I like the condensed in. I like that. If you're here right now, you are a part of this right now. And you're hearing about it. You're catching part of the story. Obviously, we're not sharing the whole thing tonight. We're just trying to give you some bullet points of really the beginning and how we got to the point of being at this 5-year anniversary. But I just want to say thank you. Whether this is the first time you've heard of us or you've been there since day one, if you look around, this is what makes up the word that Jim brought up. It's team. And we cannot do this without you. And so this is just a small picture of what this team looks like. And when we look back 5 years ago, and my wife and I are looking at each other like, how's this going to possibly work? Well, it works because God does this. And so this is a beautiful picture, and I just appreciate you guys. But you can be seated. I want to call Bill Horn is going to come out. We're going to talk a little bit. We're kind of on the same theme here because understanding the beginning of this is really important. We kind of had first time we kept a bro buffer for us here, and he won't get into the detail this time about why that is, but
sad.
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. Bill and I actually used to be on staff together at a church in Florida. He ended up here. Now he's the worship pastor at Fellowship, and that happened through my relationship with Joe, and Joe called me, and they were looking to hire a worship pastor. I had no idea Bill was even leaving our old church. Praise Jesus, you were leaving our old church. And he was looking for a move. You wanted to move to Topeka, Kansas, right? Wasn't that your first choice?
I don't think I'd ever considered living in Topeka. I wasn't really sure where it was. I knew it was in Kansas, but that was about the extent of it. So, yep, God brought us here. And we left the church that we were at together. Brett and I served. He was the college pastor down there, and I was one of the worship pastors on staff with this church. I had been there a year before he got there, and then we served together for 3 years before Trash Mountain really got rolling. And so I was there about another year after he left. We were both still in Lakeland, Florida together while this was all going on, and God just really stirred us to leave. We didn't really know. Usually God calls you to somewhere, not just away from somewhere. And so we just said, we told the church, we're supposed to go. We don't know where we're supposed to go. And none of this, Brett and I hadn't had a conversation about this whole thing going on. It was kind of quiet. And then he called me in the middle of a meeting and said, hey, this pastor from Topeka is looking for a worship pastor. It's one of the churches that is one of our biggest supporters with Trash Mountain. It's a great church. I don't know if I told him I'd call you. I didn't know if you'd be interested in moving to Topeka. I'm like, well, actually, we're leaving here. We don't know where we're going. And so we talked probably the next day. I think it was like a Wednesday afternoon. Joe and I talked on the phone, and God brought us here. And it's just been amazing to see how God's kind of connected the dots. Another way that Trash Mountain has kind of been this thing that God has used to connect dots and connect God's people together to do something. And it's been cool to be a part of that.
No, and I got 10%, so it was cool. It worked out. So finder's fee.
It's not a whole lot.
Yeah. But yeah, and when we were on the church in Florida, we did a couple of services together for young adults, college students, 20-somethings, whatever you want to call it. There's like 19 different things you can call that, and we really reached out to that area in that. And so, he led worship. I would preach. He'd do a service in the middle of the week. one on Sundays, in the afternoons. And as we were doing that, we both really just felt, we really had a hunger to do more, and just wanted to serve the community, and weren't really sure what that looked like necessarily. I mean, we had a lot of conversations, we were, teaching different things, and I mean, there was definitely a hunger for it, but I don't know, I mean, we had a lot of wants, but I don't think we knew how to carry it out, and I don't know how.
Yeah, I think we were both kind of on separate paths. Like going towards the same direction. I was involved with missions to Brazil, and had gone down there about 4 times over the course of being in Florida, and really just had a heart to get all of our students, all of the college students especially, to see that. I think it's important for every one of us as Christians to go outside of our country and be on the field somewhere for the purpose of sharing the gospel, just to see what life is like outside of the States, because I think it's really eye-opening for all of us and changes our perspective, our priorities, our values, and really puts the priorities where they belong, on relationships, on the gospel, on the kingdom of God, rather than on stuff and building our own little kingdoms. And so I think both of our hearts were really in the same place. Honestly, the first trip I've actually taken with Trash Mountain was just a few months ago in January, which was kind of crazy, being along for this whole time. But
yeah, you took way too long.
I did. Sorry. But it's just God was doing this all along, just stirring this thing in us and trying to get our college students to go along with it. And really, it's one of those things that no matter what anybody really wants, when God starts leading people and putting that burden on people to care for the needy and to just be witnesses for the gospel and to carry that out and to serve the needy and the low and the lost and the hurting, like when God does that in people, it's really, leaders can't really do a whole lot about that. It's going to happen. People are going to get involved. And that was what really happened with Trash Mountain. When this whole thing started, as soon as Brett started sharing with our church about what was going on, there were the kids, how much did they raise? The children's ministry just took up a collection one weekend down there, and they built one of the houses.
Yeah, they started that way, and then it was like a 6-week deal, and usually they do their VBS. It was for VBS, right? And they do like a whole year, and they had raised like $1,100 once. That was like their top dollar, and in 6 weeks for this, after we showed them the video we shot, they raised like $7,200 in 6 weeks.
It was incredible.
So it was just weird. Like it was just strange, the things that were happening. It really kind of blew us away, and yeah.
So really, just from the very beginning, God's hand was in it, and Brett came back from his first trip to Honduras to Tegucigalpa, and after meeting the ministers down there and the trip that he had gone on with JL and Michael, and he was just really stirred by the whole thing. I think there was some confusion, some uncertainty about what step to take next. Like, how do I even begin to do anything about this? Because it just seems so huge and so impossible. And really searching out whether God was calling him to do it or just to pray about it and send resources or to be more involved. So he was really searching that out. But as he began to share, it was just one thing after another. And I can't even, he talks about it in the book, but we used to joke, like, what's the Trash Mountain miracle of the day? It's hard to even explain, but it was every single day there was some door that opened that was just ridiculous. And God just did something amazing, and you're like, how on earth is this happening? Like, just watching the thing unfold, it was, I think by the end of your time in Lakeland and on staff there was no question what was next. So.
Yeah, and we had, it was nice having someone like him just too, because we had the same feeling too, and we were going through some of the same struggles at the church, and just with some of the philosophies that were being, used and carrying out ministry, and something that developed over that time too, and that we have had as a theme for Trash Mountain ever since is this whole concept of don't pray a prayer you're not willing to be the answer to. And it's kind of self-explanatory, I guess, but there's John DeMeo sent me this scripture from Proverbs just this week actually, and I know I had read it before, but it just clicked. We say that statement all the time, but it's Proverbs 3:27. It says, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is within your power to do it." And that really says it. You know, it's like if you're standing there and you're asking God, hey, God, will you help this person with such and such? And you actually can do that right there in that moment. It's like, okay. And there was this day, we had a prayer room that we had built for our college students, and I was in there, and I spent the whole morning just working through this whole Honduras trip, and just broke down, and I prayed this prayer, and the prayer started praying for the people in Honduras, but it took a detour very quickly, and the prayer took on an attitude of a very different sort. It was not praying for the people. It was, how can I be of service? In other words, what is it we're supposed to do in this situation? And I went to Bill's office and just broke down, and we had the conversation, you know, and basically of what he just said. It was like, we're seeing all these things happen, and it's like, you know, I think it was something to the effect of, you know, bro, obviously this is, you know, this is of God. Something's happening. You need to move. You know, you need to do something.
Yeah, I mean, there was no question at that point. The biggest thing. It's easy for me to say because I wasn't the one who's being called to take the leap, you know. But so me standing on the outside looking in is like, man, there's, you know, I can't tell you to quit your job and go do this, but I think you should.
I got fired a couple months later.
Yeah,
anyway,
you know, so it worked, but.
And you can read about that in the book too. I promise it's there. But how when it comes to this, you know, we have such different ways of expressing ourselves in ministry. You know, how with the music, I don't have a musical bone in my body, but you know, we work well together. You know, and I think when it comes to the music and how it ties into missions, I mean, you've always had a missions heart, but when it comes to this, and even just how you've tied this into Trash Mountain, even the art on the CD and all, you know, how does that play into this, and how did that play into it for you at that time even?
Well, I mean, in my mind, worship is, I mean, basically, to boil it down, worship is how we respond to God, what he's done, and who he is. And so worship through singing, worship through living, I mean, those are the same thing. They're not separate things. It's not supposed to be a divided area of our lives. When we are living in obedience to God because of who he is and what he's done, when we're responding to him, that is worship. And so if God calls us to go, like Isaiah, and Isaiah's response is, here I am, send me. And that's a response of worship. It's not just obedience. Obedience is worship if it's in response to who God is. If it's because of what God has already done for us, then that's worship. And so when I think of the gospel, I think of our call to go, but that's just the only fitting response to what he's done for us. It's been so amazing that he saved us when we were enemies. He came for us and rescued us. And so why would we not want to tell everyone about this? And so with music, that's just my way of kind of processing my own call to follow the Lord in my own situations. And so a lot of the words that I use are just either trying to affirm my own faith and my own belief, my own trust in the Lord for what he has done or what he will do, and believing that he can change everything. And like the song we're going to sing in a minute, it's called Only a Word, and that was, you know, one of those things where it's just, do I really believe that if God said something right now that it could change? And yes, I do believe that, and I want to believe that more. So God, help my unbelief. And so that's really part of what that was. I mean, I was on the, just real quick about the song, we were on the Amazon River when I was on one of the trips in Brazil, and a friend of mine, Amber, was on the trip with us. She was our translator and one of my musicians from our worship team in Lakeland. And we're just going down this river, which it's hard to describe the Amazon. The narrowest point is a mile wide. You can't see the other side of the river most of the time. So we're on the river, and I'm just taking it all in, like, wow, this is beautiful. And she's like, shouldn't you be writing a song or something? I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. So so I went up to the front of the boat and had just written a guitar part at the hotel before we left, and then God just kind of gave me all the words right there. It was just all in one sitting. That doesn't happen very often. It's usually more of a struggle, but that's just, what that song was from, is just seeing God's handiwork, seeing his creation, and that led me to worship. So I don't know, I think just all of our mission to follow Christ, to serve him, to serve those he's called us to serve, it's got to be because he's already done it for us. We were needy, we were broken, we were hurting, we were lost and empty and without hope, and he came for us. And he's called us to do the same for these people. So,
yeah, Bill's, as he plays that song, that's actually one of my favorite songs, probably, if not my favorite Christian song ever written. And it's not just because he's my friend. I think I can say that. I like a lot of music, and this is just the lyrics are just really powerful, and I know the story behind it, so that maybe does influence me a little bit. But I really do just enjoy his heart behind how he writes his music. And but just before he does that, I want to share the prayer with you it's in the book, but I want to share the prayer with you that I prayed that day just as I remember it. I've said it many times that there was this whole thing started with a prayer. We've had that in a lot of documentation. We've just said it a lot of times that Trash Mountain started with a prayer. And this is the prayer that I've always been thinking of and talking about when we've said that. And I've never really shared it with anyone before this. You might as well just throw it in a book when you've never talked to anyone about it, But it's hard for me to share. It's very personal, just because it was just a very from the heart, off the cuff, this is what's happening. And this is where it changed from God help these people in Honduras to, okay, and it was just a brokenness, And after Bill plays this song, you're going to hear another prayer. It's a audio recording of a little girl praying a prayer, and her name's Laylee. She lives in Honduras, and her this prayer and her story was something that has absolutely changed not only my wife and I's life, but just a lot of people's lives. And Jerry Brocious is going to come up after that and talk about it, but I'm glad it's him because, man, it's pretty tough. But this little girl, she's a warrior, and you're going to hear her prayer after I get through this, and Bill shares only a word. But if you could just join me in prayer. Again, I'm going to be reciting this, but if you could just pray with me and just hear the words. Father, please give me the opportunity to serve you through serving your people living in trashed up communities all over the world. I will dedicate myself and my family to this work. Please show me what you have for me and open the doors for Trash Mountain Project to move forward, to share your love and your gospel throughout the world. Please do something so big that we will all see your glory in ways that we can hardly believe, and that will build our faith stronger every single day. I want to witness your son's glory in the darkest corners of your creation. I will die for you. I will die for my family. I will die for my friends, and I will die for whatever you ask of me. Give me the courage to follow you no matter what, not only in this ministry, but with my family, my friends, and enemies alike. My life is yours. Send me. Amen.
With a word you throw, spheres and spaces fall. With your voice you fill the void with light and worlds. With your arm you carve the ocean from the shore. With your breath you move the dust and life is born. With only a word, stars come blazing forth. Only one verb. Darkness is no more. Only your voice pierce us through, oh Lord. This world can be transformed with only a word. With a thought you ease the waves and still the sea. With your hand you touch the blind and let him see. With a song you make the prison doors break. Darkness is no more, only your voice can pierce us through, oh Lord. This world can be transformed with only your word. The sun aligns with you, for you are true. You are reality before everything, everything. With only your word. Stars come blazing for only one verse. Darkness is no more, it's only your voice that can pierce us through, oh Lord. This world can be transformed, said this world can be transformed with only your word.
Dear Jesus, if you are out there and you can hear me right now, I am scared. I am scared to be in my own home. I am scared to go to sleep at night. The only time I am not scared is when I'm at school. That's where they told me about you and that I don't need to be scared because you're always with me. But I can't see you and I don't feel you here with me. When it rains, I can't sleep because I am wet and then I get sick. There is no lock on the door or window to the bedroom that I share with my brothers and sisters. We are afraid of the bad people that hurt us. Where are you? If you are there and you can hear me and you love me like Pastor Johnny says you do, will you give my family a new home that will protect us? Please, Jesus. I don't want to live anymore. I hate this world. Please help me, Jesus, if you hear my prayers.
My name is Jerry Brocious. 4 years ago, my wife, Barbara, and I made a commitment to Brett to go to Honduras with their new ministry, Trash Mountain Project. We'd actually taken a number of summer mission trips with high school kids to third world countries. My wife has always commented that I fit in well with high school students. Never asked her exactly why she, no. But we had, and on a couple of those trips, we had been to trash dump communities, Guatemala and others, but we had never been prepared for what we saw in Honduras. And we had never been prepared for Lele. I mentioned that I've not always been, I'm not a brave person, but I've never been especially afraid on any mission trip. I just figured, if something happens to you on a mission trip, then, it's probably better than getting struck by lightning in the middle of a backswing or something. You're just better off. When we arrived at the trash dump in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, there were actually vultures that were bigger than the children that were walking around. And part of that's because the kids, once they're about 3 years old, they're sent out to dig in the trash. So, but as you can imagine, in an area like that has that much poverty, unfortunately, it also accompanies a lot of crime, and so the life of a young girl is very much in jeopardy. what we saw with Trash Mountain was them partnering with local churches to bring hope to a people that just so desperately needed it and to be introduced to a Savior. And it was so exhilarating. We also saw them partner with a Christian school to teach kids life skills and grow in Christ, and it was equally transforming. When we got to that school, we got a chance to meet Laylee, and the story of her prayer, I'm sure, is in the book because it's such a story of redemption and salvation. You know, Laylee's story is so great, but it's probably been written 1,000 times. But we're in the business of seeing through Trash Mountain Project a God that has rewriting the stories of people's lives all over the world. If you were to put a face on Trash Mountain Project, they'd be opposed to you doing so, but it could easily have the face of Brad or JL or John or Shelley or any of a number of people on the staff. But as for me, the face of Trash Mountain is Laylee. Thank you.
Who can rescue man from sin? Who can break him from this hopeless prison? Who can bear the wrath ahead? Who can make him live though he's long been dead? Who could light the darkest night? Who could speak a word that death would turn to life? Who could heal this hopeless pain? Who could make it right and make me live again? You, Jesus, you. You, Jesus, you. Death reigned in all men died till you paid the promised price, the ransom of your life, most holy sacrifice. But the grave could not contain the Lamb who bore my stain. He died and rose again. send me home where forever I will sing. You, Jesus, you. You, Jesus, you.
Bill, love that song. Jesus, you, awesome. In fact, I've loved them all since Horizon, the very first one. That's what I'm calling it, Horizon. Appreciate it. Brett asked me, my name is Jim Congdon, and I collaborated with him on the book. Brett asked me if I would share, give you a flavor of what I did for the book. He told me to take 8 minutes. I'll take 4. I will tell you that when he, knowing what I knew about Trash Mountain, when he asked if I would help him with the book, I kicked myself for telling him he ought to write a book. But the issue clearly and very quickly became, Jim, how are you going to write about miracles, coincidences, huge prayers and wondrous answers to prayer? Things like needing a huge amount of money right now, and all of a sudden that amount of money comes. Or needing safety, you're in great danger, and all of a sudden the bad guys are scared away in some country by what appear to them to be angels, perhaps. Or, for example, needing to feed hundreds of kids every single day in Santiago, and it's seeming impossible, but then a person, one of the few people around in Northeast Kansas who would know how to do that, stepping forward. How do you explain things like that? And so you'll find in the book that's what I do. I try to talk from a biblical way about those things. And he told me to pick one, and I'm picking one that has sort of a zinger, okay? Sort of a call to action in each of us, all right? And it's coincidences. If I were to ask you, do you believe in coincidences? Many of you would right away, because you're godly, spiritual people, you'd say, don't believe in coincidences. We all know people who even go farther than that, and if someone in their presence says, wow, just by this amazing coincidence, and you go, don't say that. There are no coincidences with God. So I'll tell you 4 things that come out of the Bible and church history about coincidence real quick, and then the zinger. Number 1, in the Bible, there are such things as coincidences, random events, and chance. There are. God uses those terms. In Ecclesiastes chapter 9, remember, he says that the race is not to the swift nor the battle to the strong, which we know at KU and K-State. They're no longer playing. But time and chance happen to them all. Chance and chance, or coincidence, happen to them all. We read that Ruth, by chance, went into the field of Boaz the farmer. We read in the Old Testament, in 1 Kings, that a Syrian warrior, an archer, drew his bow and shot an arrow at random, it says, in the Hebrew, that struck and killed the king of Israel. We have even Jesus saying in the parable of the Good Samaritan that by chance a priest walked down by the Good Samaritan. So one thing we can say for certain, that if you're too spiritual to allow someone in your presence to use words like chance and coincidence and random, then you're more spiritual than God. So you may want to tone it down a little bit. Now, the flip side of that is there are no such things, you and I know, as mere coincidences that happen completely by blind chance. For you and I know, and the Bible is very clear, that God works all things after the counsel of his will, and even chance and random events and coincidences fall under his purview, for he is the governor, he is the Lord of all things that happen, right? And so even what seem like coincidences, for example, he must have moved Ruth to go into that field. He guided that arrow so that it killed the king, right? So God truly is in control of all things, and they all fall underneath his providence, even chance and coincidence. Now, the third thing I'll say out of the Bible, having said first yes and then no, about these things is that God never promises us the ability to interpret coincidences accurately. I mean, the guy who was trying to decide between two girls to marry, and concluded that when he opened the Bible, put his finger down and it said, "Grace be with you," that it should be Grace and not Susan, that may not have been the best way for him to discern that. And you can't know for sure. God never promises that ability. No saint in the Bible ever interprets circumstances. Bible never tells us to. It's the pagans that do that. Remember the shipwrecked Paul on the island of Malta. A snake comes out, bites him, poisonous snake. They all go, "This guy's a devil. He's a terrible guy." Wrong, right? So Paul shakes off the snake into the fire, and he doesn't die. And then the pagans interpret that circumstance. They say, "He must be a god." Wrong on both counts. And so God doesn't promise you the ability. Do not move coincidences up the ladder of how to know God's will so that you believe that the most spiritual people in the world are those who walk around having coincidences happen to them that they can interpret correctly. And the final thing I say is, on the other hand, coincidences happen in the Bible and in life as a whisper from the Lord, "I am with you." As a love letter, as a surprise gift from a secret lover in heaven. They happen as little nudges that tell Joe and me on a Sunday morning, "Go ask that guy to eat lunch this week." Or happen to you at work when the Lord whispers to you and he says, "You ought to share Christ with him. I think he's ready." So coincidences do happen. In fact, here's the zinger. William Temple, great archbishop, great Christian leader in England, 100 and some years ago, put it this way. He said, if you pray, you'll find that coincidences happen. If you don't pray, you'll find that they don't. And so the challenge is for you and for me, let's pray more than we're praying now so that we can hear those whispers from the Lord. "Look, I am with you. I love you." Let me lead us in prayer. Heavenly Father, I pray for the folks sitting here who love Trash Mountain as I do and are going to exult as they read this book about all of the coincidences and the wonderful things that happen, random events that aren't really random that have happened to Brett and to the team and to Trash Mountain, the clear evidence that your hand is upon this ministry. Heavenly Father, I ask that no one in here who reads that book will somehow feel inferior or feel somehow that Brett is a holy man, that each of us would realize that if we will go to you in prayer more and more and more, we too will hear and experience those nudges, those whispers, those little love letters from you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Shadows, in the empty, in darkness, you are near. You are near. In trial, in the fire, in the pain, you are with me. You are with me, Lord. I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. You're the only one. Hears me when I call. dark is like the light to you. The night is bright as day. Wherever I go, Lord, you remain. You're the only one who hears me when I call. You're the only one to catch me when I fall. You're the only one who hears me when I call. You're the only one. Oh, you catch me when I fall. Lord, you catch me when I fall. You catch me when I
Give them another round of applause. That's the last time you're going to hear them tonight. I want to, I was trying to think about what to say just in closing, and I really want to address something that obviously you've heard about a couple of times tonight from Russ, from Jim, and it has to do with just some of these things. I mean, the book, it's just thick with them. Really, that's part of the reason we wrote it, because to me it is an interesting story. It's been an interesting story to a lot of people that have been involved in it with Trash Mountain, and I have been privileged to witness some really incredible stories and events of God and angelic beings, voices, stuff that you hear, and especially if you don't believe in God, you hear that and you just look at someone like, okay, kook, that sounds great, and even Christians kind of sometimes take a step back. I used to take a step back, still do sometimes, but I've been asked about that a lot, and it's given me, I've dealt with a lot of anxiety from it, and sometimes grief, and whether or not, sometimes I think people either just think you're crazy or you're lying, or something's been embellished, or God just doesn't do those things anymore. And, it's a difficult thing to figure out. But what I always land on is, what if it's all true? Everything that we've reported, everything that's been witnessed is exactly how we've seen it. And if it's true, that causes a lot of questions. I was a couple of weeks ago sitting in a hospital bed, fighting off worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And, pain has a benefit. You ever thought about that? It causes you to appreciate life. And not the life you're living right at that moment while you're dealing with pain, but you start appreciating the things that you have, And what it did to me was, it took being hospitalized to do it. Maybe that was God's way of telling me to slow down. But, I started thinking about the things that I do have and the things that I love. And it really came down to two categories for me. And at first it was my family. I was thinking about my kids and my wife, and thinking about my wife going over to Bulgaria to pick up our new son, and that I couldn't go because I was in the hospital, and struggling with that, but then the other was this ministry. And the funny thing was, is they kind of bled together during this time, because then we actually had someone working in our ministry, and a friend, Carol Mamalidi, ended up going with my wife to Bulgaria to pick up our son, and it really caused me personally to look at this team, and just to look at God, and just say, wow, what has happened with this? Look at the people we get to be around. Look at the churches we get to serve with. And I knew the anniversary event was coming up. I was hoping I'd actually be here, I was reflecting back like, man, 5 years, it seems like it's been a lot longer than that, but it's been 5 years. And I should have known it'd be a wild ride because honestly, the things you're going to read in there, those were not normal occurrences for me before this ministry. And so I think that says something about the ministry and not me. But the first time I ever spoke about Trash Mountain, it was before we'd even been to Honduras, the church that me and Bill served together on third service, biggest service that we had down there. They were having me do the little 2-minute, hey, one of our pastors is going on a mission trip. He's going to tell you about it. And the third service just felt weird. I was about to walk out. I just thought it was nerves, something like that. And as I was walking out, it just felt strange. And I thought it was nerves because it was like 1,300 people in this one service, just really large service. And I got out there, gave a little, this is where we're going. And we showed some pictures and just a little bit we knew about this whole trash dump community concept. And afterward, I was standing on the front of the stage and this woman walks up with a paradog with her, and she gestures for me to come down. So I get down, and as soon as she started talking, I could tell she had hearing problems. And she said, first thing she said was, I'm 100% deaf, and she could speak well enough that I could understand what she was saying. But she said, I need to tell you something. And I was like, okay. And she's like, when you started talking about those kids and those families that live in the trash dump, I heard every word you said. And that's never happened to me before. And when you stopped, I didn't hear anything again. And I kind of, whoa. And my direct boss, I kind of just like, Jerry, come here, man. And I was like, can you say what you just said to me, just so I'd have someone else that heard this, and said the same thing to him. And he kind of introduced himself to her, and then she walks up to me and she hands me this check, and she's like, I want to help with your cost of your trip. And I was like, ma'am, we're staying in this $10 million facility. I'm like, I'm a pastor on staff here. I was like, they're going to handle my costs. And she's like, no, I want you to take this down there and give it to them. I was like, well, I can do that. And she said, I need to tell you one more thing. She's like, as long as you help these kids living in trash, God's going to bless everything you do. And gave me a hug, walked off, went to we had a deaf ministry at the church, and I asked them, we went the next day, me and Jerry went in, like, do you know this woman? We described her. They're like, oh, she comes every couple months. We know her, but she's not really a part of the ministry. She doesn't come regularly. She lives out in Apopka, Florida, and I put it in the book. I was like, if you read this, please contact me. We couldn't find her. We called the bank. All it was a P.O. box. Said, we have no information. Couldn't give it to you anyway legally. Could not find this woman. She never came back after that. And I don't think she'll probably be contacting me from the book, is my guess. But that was like the first time we ever spoke about this, and we hadn't even been down there. And then we actually went, and we saw this injustice, this just craziness that we couldn't imagine. And what we felt was that we were getting a glimpse of what God sees every second of every day. And if you can picture the love that we've been taught about God, that God is love, and he has to see everything that goes on that's wrong with this world, and to be able to get a glimpse of that. This last 5 years has been about a response. We've actually been able to do something. And there's been a tidal wave of support from you. And to me, that's something we celebrate. We've been rescued from harm. I mean, we didn't tell a ton of the stories, but if you'll be reading about them. But we've seen kids healed of diseases and ailments that are impossible to be healed from, and their doctors tell us that. We have medical reports that don't add up. These things are impossible, and they're happening. We've had people show up at the exact same time as we need something. Jim hinted at a couple of different times. I mean, it happens all the time where we're praying about a need, and the person walks in, the plumber comes in when we just say, hey, we need a plumber, and the plumber walks through the front door. This has happened. He may even be here right now. I don't know. He was at my house this morning when we had plumbing problems. And, prayer after prayer has been answered. Starving kids are healthy now. Christian schools and churches are being built. Livelihood projects like this crazy thing over here are launching. The elderly are being served, and people are coming to know Christ in numbers that we're never going to know. People ask me that a lot, like, so how many people have come to know Christ? I don't know. Isn't that kind of God's number? And, our partners probably know a lot better than we do. I just think, what? God is the one who draws people to himself. We do everything we can to love people in Christ's name, and to share who Jesus is with every person that's unreached and needs to hear his name. And, we just kind of look at that and say, yeah, I think it's going to be a very massive number, but that's for God to know, and hopefully he'll tell me when I get there someday. And we know it's happening. We know that we're building disciples in other countries. So the mission is being carried out. It's happening. It's working. There's a missions model that's happening that's never been in place for trash dump communities. So you go back to the question of why me? I think it's easy enough for me to just say, who cares? What's it matter? And I don't say that as a smart aleck. I say that as God's moving. If anything, it just shows that his grace is so deep that we'll never understand it fully. Jim kind of jokingly, but in all seriousness, mentioned Leavenworth earlier, and that, I was kind of on a fast road to that. I was. And, if somehow he's allowed me to be a part of this, then all that does is speak of his grace. It doesn't say anything about me, right? So who cares? We just know that he's moving. I think it says a lot more about the ministry. I think it says something about Trash Mountain. I think it says something about the people that are being served. So 5 years. Dr. West, that you heard from earlier, 3 years ago, told our board of directors, once you get to 5 years old, you'll be new. You'll be a new organization. I was like, okay, wow. So we're there. We've kind of had our infancy stage, and we've gotten through the adolescence, and we kind of have our feet are under us now, and we've got a missions model, and things are working. But I think I know what he meant, is that there's just so much time it takes just to figure out who the heck you are. And I think we've gotten there a lot faster than we thought we would. But I also just want to look at this as we celebrate this last 5 years. I want to look at it more importantly as looking forward at the next 5 years. And that there's a big burden. And I want to share a passage with you. My brother and I had studied 2 Corinthians recently, and this one it really stood out to both of us. If you want to read it along with me, it's 2 Corinthians 1, 8 through 11. It's, for we do not want you to be ignorant, brothers, of the affliction we experienced in Asia. For we were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death. But that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. He delivered us from such deadly peril, and he will deliver us. On him we have set our hope that he will deliver us again. You also must help us by prayer, so that many will give thanks on behalf of the blessing granted us through the prayers of many. I like that passage because it's just all about, we're just here to do. It ends with, we need a ton of people praying, and we need all of our hope in God. And they were at a place where they were basically kind of yearning for death, is what it sounded like. It was so bad, yet they were also still had their hope placed in him. And we look at this and we say, you know what? There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, it's going to be difficult. But we know that the hope is still right there in Christ. And we know that we need a team to be able to do it. So whether you have been a part of TMP since day one, or this is the very first time you've heard about it, we need you as this team. I know we've been saying that all night, but that is going to be the anthem in this ministry, is that we have got to have everybody on this. And I've kind of hesitated on calling it team because there's such a battle going on the ground and what's happening. We've called it a lot of different things, but we'll call it a team tonight. You'll notice in the book, it ends with a to be continued. And I didn't plan on giving you this is actually set up to be a series of books because the story hasn't ended. And it's to be that we want you to be a part of the next story. This is something that's not going to stop. I haven't ever really seen that before, where it's just kind of a continual, story. It's not it's not Harry Potter, or it's not the I can't remember what are the other ones. What'd you say, Lord of the Rings? Oh, Hunger Games? Man, you got them all. That was crazy. Yeah. But this is an active, we don't know the next part of the story, yet we've kind of already started, playing with some ideas on what it is, and some things have happened that kind of already made that happen. But I wasn't going to give you a teaser, so to speak, of what that is. But then this morning when I got the text from my wife that sewage was taking over our basement, it's just been that month. It's just been unbelievable. It's so much fun. And I got about 10 minutes later, I got another text. We have a little boy that's in the Philippines, and he has just been, he's someone that we were over there. We had a group of pastors go over in January, and we had a kind of a leadership conference for some of the leaders that are in the trash dump communities. And we went into this boy's home, and we were called by the parents. They said, that we want prayer for our son. And we went in, and this boy was just like shaking violently on the floor and just convulsing. It's hard to even put into words. Me and Bill talked about it. You can't put into words how horrifying this was. And you go into this really closed space, hut, and it's got low ceilings, it's dark, it's moldy, he's on kind of a molded mattress, and he's convulsing every second to 2 seconds, and he's been 24 hours a day for months and months, and he's got this degenerative disease that's not going to go away. But we all decided to go inside of his house and pray for him and help with medicine or whatever we could do, and they'd said he's going to die, but we said, well, we want to pray with him. And I got a text this morning, and we had heard that he was starting to do better, but I got a picture that was sent to me, and he went to church this morning, and he's not convulsing anymore. He was there, he was smiling. He thanked the pastor for coming and praying. And this is a absolutely different kid for the people who were there. I don't know if any of the pastors are here. We didn't tell any of them that until, because we literally just found out this morning, but really just blew us away that this would happen. It's hard because you pray with such faith that God would do this. And, every time we pray for someone in a situation like this, we believe 100% it's going to happen. But as you know, it doesn't always happen. And it's shocking every time when you see someone like this. And we don't know. This is still the middle of the story. We don't know what's happening with him. Other than I can tell you that kid right there was shaking and shaking on the ground every second. And there was no end in sight. And now he's going to church and walking there himself. And unbelievable. And so the moral of the story is that it hasn't ended. These things are happening, and I was preparing for today, and I was like, man, something's missing. I was like, I kind of want to say something about possibly the next book, and then get a text this morning, coincidence, this morning about this. And, we want to invite you to be a part of this. And, for us, obviously, this is a book release, and, the book is part of, one way to do that, obviously reading the story, knowing about how this all has gone down, sharing that with other people. Bill's album, being able to do just the worship side of this and his music. Both of those two items, me and Bill, Bill's was a little different just because he's not on staff with our ministry, but he decided just to do the album and have all proceeds go to Trash Mountain Project. And then the book is the exact same way. And so, but not only that, they just go to the nutrition program in the Philippines. So we've actually made it very specific. It's just going towards food for the kids over there. And so that's by buying the book, you've already kind of become a part of that story. And the only other thing you'll find out there in terms of Trash Mountain related items, obviously we have some fun stuff out there for you to do, but we have the community sponsorship. It's the exact same thing as any sponsorship thing you've seen. It's just we don't give you an exact kid. We found that in the communities we work in, it's much better if we just sponsor the whole community and we don't make it very specific to the kid. We just ran into some things that it's much healthier for the families we're working with there if we do it this way. But it basically provides all the education, food, healthcare, discipleship training, anything you can imagine. It covers all of that. And so if you want to check that out, there's information out there. Also tonight, if you do sign up to do the community sponsorship, you get a free book and CD. But all those things are back there. So I encourage you, please, check that stuff out. Again, we kind of just tried to give you little teasers of what's there in the book, but just appreciate you guys coming out and taking the time to be with us here tonight. I'm going to do something a little unique. I've never asked my parents to be involved in any of our events or any of these soiree kind of things, and so I wanted to have them come up here and actually close us in prayer. So Mom and Dad, if you come up here. As Jim mentioned, and nothing was rehearsed for this entire evening, which is kind of nice. It's kind of off the cuff, but they were praying. We talked about, this all started with a prayer. They were praying prayers for this guy a long time ago. They knew a very different Brett years ago, and so I'd say the prayer started a really long time ago for this ministry, at least if it was going to be me that was involved in it. So if you want to close us in prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, this is a time of year where we remember what Jesus did for us. You had a plan, you had a way to get us to where we could spend eternity with you. On the cross, Jesus at the end said, my God, why have you forsaken me? And so he paid the price for our sins. And now we have trash dumps where kids and men and women have no way of getting out, and they're crying up to God the same thing, asking him to help. And when Jesus left this earth, he gave marching orders that really weren't complicated. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And if we have things that can help those people, then we're in fact helping Jesus. So I just ask and pray that we will do so as you've ordered. In Jesus' name, amen.
We want to thank you for coming. A couple of things as we're wrapping up. First of all, obviously you've heard us talk a lot about the book. It's part of the reason that we're here tonight. We would like to invite you to purchase these. They're available. There are two stations right here in the auditorium, and then there's one in the main lobby where you can purchase the book. Also, Bill's album. You can purchase this, and we do have bundles available, and at each of these stations where you can purchase these, you're going to be able to bundle things together, and they have pricing there and signs and all that good stuff. The book, I do want to say this, the book is available in more than just this version, because a lot of people like to read it on maybe a Kindle, or maybe you have Barnes & Noble. Is it the Nook, I think? It's available there. We have it available in just about any format you would like. If you would like for us to send it to you by a carrier pigeon, or, stone tablets, if you're Old Testament and that's your thing, that'll be fine. You just let us know. Also, if you read the book and you enjoy it and you don't mind going on Amazon and rating it, unless you didn't like it, and then, rate somebody else's. Also, Bill Horn, you'd want to pick up this CD. Obviously, the music that you've heard tonight and more is on there. We really appreciate that. This is also available on iTunes because Bill's high-tech like that, and so that's cool. Brett mentioned community sponsorship. If you want to be a part of community sponsorship, first of all, that's amazing, and it means you love Jesus. So if you want to be a part of that, go straight out to the foyer and talk to us, because like Brett mentioned, you do get a book and a CD if you are a new partner with us tonight through community sponsorship. We would love for you to be a part of that. Also, thanks so much to Michael Mize over here doing the art, right? Isn't this awesome? You guys be sure to come up and talk with him. Also on this side, you see our aquaponics display. This is always generates a lot of interest, and we love to talk about this stuff. By we, I mean the aquaponics people. I could answer your questions. They wouldn't be right answers, but Chris and Isaac are both over here right now. They're going to be standing up as soon as we finish. You can come and ask them questions. That's a really cool opportunity. Also out in the lobby, Bill's wife, Diane, was doing pottery. I don't know if you guys saw that, so you need to stop by there and take a look at that. And then on this side in the lobby, we have a kind of a photo booth where we're taking pictures. There's a big banner there, and they'll take care of the pictures for you, and they're going to do some kind of magic with hashtags. Who knows what that's like? Probably a 10-year-old could explain it to us, right? So that was funny. Come on. Thanks for coming. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, because that's how we get a lot of our information out. It's a way for us to communicate with you. So thanks for coming, and if you have any questions, we're hanging around. God bless you.